the base security device when we talk about in the IT infrastructure. There are a lot of security devices again after firewall also, but we have intrusion detection systems, we have intrusion prevention systems, we have web application firewalls, and we have next generation kind of threat analysis. There are a lot of again security kind of devices which are available, or the features that are available with respect to security. But the baseline or the starting point when we talk about security, that starts with the firewall. So whenever we talk about firewall, this is the general architecture which we have discussed. So a firewall is used to write the rules to allow or deny certain traffic in with respect to the kind of environment which we have. So it may be from internal network to the public network or to the internet, like from LAN to WAN zones. We have other public hosted zones like the demilitarized or the DMZ zones. So we can write the rules to allow a specific set of traffic from LAN to WAN or LAN to DMZ or LAN to WAN. Now let's say the people inside the organization, they want to access internet, but not the complete exposure to the public network or to the internet. Now we can have only certain ports to be allowed. Let's say they can access only the web traffic, or they can be allowed only to send only the email communication. So in this case, what we can do, we can write a LAN to WAN rule in the firewall saying that the LAN environment or certain, even in LAN, we can define how many people want to access the internet, or the complete set of LAN can be allowed, or only a specific set of people like the different departments are allowed to access internet, and what kind of ports. Now in this case, I can allow only port number 80, that is only with respect to the access to the web, or in case we can also allow port number 443, that is HTTPS communication. And if there is a mail communication, we can allow port number 25. Now whenever I write a rule like this, that means from LAN to WAN, I'm only allowing a certain only 3 services to be sent from my internal network to the internet. So rest of the ports are blocked, or rest of the services are not allowed for the internal people to access onto the public. So even though there is a connection, I am trying to put a limitation, or we are trying to put a particular kind of rule environment where I can restrict certain kind of only applications are allowed and rest of the traffic is denied. Similarly, now let's say there are some public websites hosted of my organization. Let's say there may be an email server, or there may be a web server, or there may be a kind of a DNS server which I am hosting as part of my organization to be allowed for the public also, or it may be some internal kind of websites. So for this kind of environment, what we can do for this infrastructure, maybe let's say there is some updation that need to be done on the email server. Instead of allowing all the people from the internal network to the DMZ zone or to the public hosted kind of servers, only a set of developers who need to update the code, they can be allowed from LAN to DMZ, so that only certain people can actually access the server, they can update the code, and they can do some modification. Similarly, for the external people, even though I am hosting a web server for the public to give some information, I cannot allow the complete kind of access to the hosting servers. Because let's say I am hosting a particular web server, that means only port 80 need to be exposed to the public. So in this case, what we can do, from DMZ to WAN, or from WAN to DMZ, which is let's say a traffic coming from the public environment, I can allow from WAN to DMZ only port number 80. That means whenever a particular user is actually accessing cdac.in, he can only access only port number 80. Or if there is a specific requirement, let's say an email server, let's say a port number 25 can be used. So accordingly, we can write the rules in the firewall, whether certain traffic has to be allowed or the traffic can be denied. So this is how the firewall will be used as a basic filtering mechanism to allow or deny the traffic. Now, when coming to the firewalls, again, it provides a secure connectivity between networks, because we can have a limitation or the kind of traffic allow what to deny and what to allow. And we can write the specific policies between the two networks, like LAN to WAN or LAN to DMZ, or from DMZ to WAN or WAN to DMZ. So we can write the security policies accordingly. So generally we say it is a kind of wall which is there to prevent the fire. And what we can actually set up in a firewall is the kind of setup rules, what to allow and what to deny. But whenever we talk about the rules, the basic or the fundamental rule of the firewall will be to deny everything. So it's like whenever we need to write something in a firewall, we need to whitelist a specific set of things. Now, let's say I want to allow from LAN to or some internal people want to access a website. So I need to write a rule specifically from LAN to WAN saying that the port number 80 are to be allowed. So this is where I will try to write the rule specifically to allow. And also, like we need to protect the computers from the outside. So this is where the filtering will write the rules accordingly. And it also sits at the central point where it can understand all the networks, because we connect all the networks to the firewall, because it need to understand the various networks or the various kind of topology that is there with respect to the organization. Now, whenever we talk about the need of the firewall, we need some sort of protection from the traffic that is flowing from different parts of the network to across the organization. It may be from one network to one other network, or it may be from one department to the other department, or a certain set of people need to have a specific privilege for accessing the network. So these kind of things can be written with respect to the firewall. Not only in terms of organization, even the desktop also have a firewall feature. Every operating system has this inbuilt feature with respect to the firewall. And also, not only with respect to the operating system, even the antivirus or the kind of anti-malware solutions which we generally use also comes with respect to the firewall features, because along with the kind of traffic in a network environment, the system also need to have certain specific rules or specific kind of limitations, what to be allowed and what to be dropped. So because the security of the infrastructure is serious in nowadays, so we need to take care of what kind of rules. Because again, I just want to highlight this point, because we have seen certain critical infrastructures where that like placing a firewall is not only the kind of thing that okay, in an infrastructure I have this firewall, now it is okay, but we need to write the rules accordingly. Let's say we place a firewall and we write a rule allow, let's say I want to allow a traffic from LAN to WAN. If I write a rule, even though I'm writing a rule like LAN to WAN, or the internal people want to access the internet, if I write a rule saying that any to any, that means any person in the internal network can access any system or IP on the internet, or with respect to certain ports, or with respect to a particular kind of port. It is not that I can allow any of the ports. Okay, so we I mean, these are some sort of default kind of rules which we write into. So we need to keep in mind what kind of rules or a specific set of rules we are allowing for the public. Because if even though there is a firewall and we are trying to allow any to any traffic, that means it is like an open gateway, okay, where the entire traffic is actually sent from one network to the other network. So the specific functionality of the firewall, we need to properly utilize that, saying that what kind of traffic we really wanted to, or that is really intended to send from one network to the other network, that need to be defined. So that is where we have to write the rules accordingly. And also the rules need to be in a manner that it has to again specify the business needs or the security policy of the organization also. So this has to be taken into consideration while writing the rules with respect to the firewall. And generally, if we talk about the functionality of the firewall, we have filtering kind of thing where we write the rules, and also the kind of inspection, what traffic is actually flowing from one network to the other network. And the most important point is that we need to log, because whenever there is a certain kind of incidents, or if you want to troubleshoot any kind of instance, this logging is very important. Because as a centralized device or a firewall, if something is blocked or certain traffic is allowed, every point or everything will be considered as an event and will be logged. So we can have this specific kind of analysis on the traffic that is allowed. So we need to have this logging feature also enabled, so that we can have the control or the complete access to network information and resources with respect to the access that is happening. And also we need to understand some certain parameters the firewall cannot do in the sense it cannot completely monitor all the traffic on the kind of behavior that is happening, because firewalls will specifically look into the kind of rules we have written. Let's say I have allowed a particular rule from LAN to WAN saying that only port number or 80 or the HTTP service has to be allowed. So it will simply check the rule and try to allow the traffic, but it will not check what is the data that is contained in it, whether it is a malware or any kind of suspicious traffic. So that kind of detection is only possible when we actually combine certain security features like the intrusion detection system or the intrusion prevention system or the kind of gateway antivirus. So these kind of additional security parameters or the features all also need to be included with respect to the firewall, so that we can have a clear or more kind of analysis with respect to the traffic that is flowing into. And one more point we need to highlight in this particular traffic is the traffic that doesn't go through the firewall. Why this is also important is because as more and more the smartphones and the kind of devices or the IoT device we are using, so even though let's say my organization is having a firewall, which there are a lot of rules and enough infrastructure is actually provided. But let's say, what if a certain employee uses a hotspot where he can divert all the traffic through his hotspot? What happens in this case now? Even though there is a firewall in place in the organization, my traffic is not going through the firewall. Now it is being diverted to the certain other device. So in this case, the firewall cannot actually detect or monitor the traffic that is part of, because the traffic is not flowing through that particular device. So this also need to be considered, and a strict policy has to be there with respect to kind of allowing these kind of devices. And mostly the internal traffic may not be passing through the firewall also, because whenever we talk about the firewall will also act like a kind of routing, where whenever the traffic passes through the firewall, that is, it is switching from the one network to the other network or from LAN to WAN. So in this kind of scenarios, mostly the internal network may not be possible to actually send from that traffic cannot be passed through the firewall. And we have seen this man in the middle kind of attacks where these are possible with respect to the LANs. So these kind of things also need to be considered. That is where the desktop firewalls or the desktop kind of environment or the antivirus solutions on the endpoints are actually useful to tackle with these kind of devices or with this kind of issues. And also with respect to the misconfigurations in the devices, where like these kind of things which we have discussed, like the default rules or the kind of rules which we write into, like any to any, or the default set of rules where everything is allowed, or certain parameters where that should not be done. So these kind of misconfigurations may also be possible, that the firewall may be, misbehave, or it may not give the actual kind of output which we are intended to. And there may be certain traffic with respect to the kind of VPNs or the public VPNs that can be used. So these kind of tunneling traffic can also be can't be done. Also malicious use of authorized device, where certain gateway antivirus solutions will be coming into picture, and the users that are avoiding the firewall to access, and if there are something flaws in the operating system. So these kind of things can be possible when we combine certain security features along with the firewall, which we'll actually see in the demonstration also. Like nowadays, instead of firewalls, we are actually getting the UTM device or the unified threat management devices, where along with the basic feature of the firewall, these security features are also coming as part of our inbuilt kind of things with respect to the firewall. Now, again, when we come to the firewalls, again, we have hardware firewalls as well as software firewalls, where the hardware are the dedicated kind of devices with respect to the firewalls. Let's say it may not have any kind of dependency on the software to run, because when we come to the software firewalls, again, these has to run on top of other operating systems or other part of software. There may be kind of latency or dependency on the software also. So whenever we come to the hardware devices, these are the specific devices or the hardware specific to the firewall functionality. So this can be mostly preferred actually in terms of the organizational requirements. And when we come to the features, we have packet filtering, we have application based firewalls. Again, we have stateful inspection firewall. So based on the kind of functionality or the placement of the firewall, so again, the basic kind of or the firewall features can be enabled. So this is how the firewall will work. Whenever we talk about the packet filters, it will work in the layer 3, where it can understand the kind of IPs, what kind of traffic that has to be allowed from a specific IP to the destination IP, or from a source IP to the destination IP, whether it can be allowed or it can be dropped. Whenever we talk about the kind of application level proxies, because mostly the firewall will work at the layer 7, because it has to understand the entire TCP protocol suite or the stack of the entire layers, because it need to understand whether what kind of service we are trying to allow or deny, whether it is HTTP service or whether it is FTP service, or what kind of IP addresses we are trying to allow, whether we are trying the complete access to the WAN IPs, or we want to block a certain, let's say there may be a kind of scenario in this kind of pandemic where we have a certain kind of traffic that is coming from different countries also. Let's say we want to block a set of countries traffic, then that also we can do with respect to the WAN, where the geophysical kind of thing can be identified with respect to the IP. So we can filter certain kind of IP addresses also. That is possible if the firewall understands the complete protocol suite. So it will try to take a decision or the kind of scenario where we write the rules accordingly. So it will try to take the decision. So this is how we can place the firewall, which we already discussed. We can place the firewall to allow the traffic from the public hosting sites to the internet, or from the internal network to the public. So based on the scenarios, we can write the rules accordingly to defend the network while using the firewall. And also we have certain desktop firewalls. Even Linux has inbuilt firewalls, like how the Windows firewalls we have, where it is called IP tables. So what happens whenever we type the packet is traversed to the firewall, first it will try to check the routing information, from which network it has to flow to which network. Then the input will again come to the firewall. It will actually check the rules, whether the traffic has to be allowed or denied. Then based on the kind of rule, the traffic will be passed to the outside network, right? So I'm not going much into the details of the complete filtering parts, because again we have packet filtering with respect to the OS level kind of thing, where we can actually allow or deny the particular traffic with respect to the headers in the information. That means what is the IP that has to be allowed, whether it is source IP, we have to take the action, or we have to take the action on the destination IP. So these kind of things can be decided with respect to that. Again, in packet filtering, we have static filtering, where we have to write the rules with respect to that, or we can have a dynamic kind of rules we can also write, where that will come as the static stateful or the application level. Now this is how the rule can be written. We can actually decide on the parameter, like whether we can write on the source IP, or we can take action on the destination IP, or what kind of protocol type we are actually trying to take, whether it is the ICMP protocol or TCP or UDP or HTTP, and what is the source port that we need to take action, and what is the destination port on which we need to action, along with the flags of the TCP. We have learned that there are 6 flags in TCP: SYN, FIN, acknowledgement, reset, urgent, as well as push. So according to the flag, we need, if we want to take a specific action, because in the stateful kind of things, where we have learned one command like netstat. Whenever we type netstat-an in the any of the operating system, we can see what are the ports that are open on the operating system, along with the kind of states of the connection, whether it is established or whether it is waiting connection. So based on the kind of state of the connection also, we can take a decision to actually write. Also, we have seen in the scanning part, where we can use certain kind of techniques in Nmap, where we can use acknowledgement scan or different kind of scanning mechanisms. Now, whenever we enable the firewalls, the scannings can also be blocked. Let's say, instead of directly sending a SYN packet using Nmap tool, I am sending an acknowledgement packet. If it is a normal kind of operating system, it cannot actually take a decision. But in terms of firewall, what it will do, it also, as it is maintaining the states of the connection, it will try to check whether any kind of SYN or the initiation has already done with respect to that. If there is no SYN, why an acknowledgement is directly coming to this connection? So it will simply drop the connection. So these kind of actions can also be possible if there is a security device like firewall which is placed with respect to the network. So this is how the sessions can also be used with respect to the firewall. One more important feature with respect to the firewall is the kind of proxy servers we have, where we can, instead of directly talking to the public network, we can use this proxy at the application level, where let's say I want to allow a certain website or I want to allow the specific content. Let's say we want to block a particular word called cricket, where it should not be allowed to the public or from the internal people. Then we can use these proxies. And the main advantage of proxy is that on behalf of the entire, let's say there are 100 employees connected to the proxy. Now, on behalf of all the 100 employees, the proxy will be talking to the internet. So all these 100 IPs or the 100 employees will be behind the proxies. Whenever someone sees from the outside or from the public interface, they can only see the proxy server, not the complete infrastructure of the thing. So this is how proxy will actually be placed, like where all the internal people will be hidden with respect to the public. Okay, because it provides security to system and data, and also it can increase the, because it also caches the kind of access that is being done with respect to the internal people. So we can use application level proxies where it works at layer 7. So this is how the main advantage with respect to the proxy, because directly we are not connecting all the internal people, and we can also have certain features like URL filtering, where we can block or allow certain URLs. And also we have certain content also, where based on the kind of keywords we can actually block or allow certain content also. So this is how the one of the feature of proxy firewall can be used as proxy. Again, we have transparent, non-transparent, where if we explicitly write what is the proxy address, it is called as a non-transparent, or without there is no need to write any kind of proxy details with respect to the browsers or any kind of settings, then we call it as a transparent proxy. So this is how the stateful inspection will be used. So this we have seen already, the TCP three-way handshake. So based on the kind of connections that are established, so the certain states of the connection are maintained here. We can see when a SYN is sent, it is in listening mode, and when a SYN is received, it is in a SYN received mode. And when a three-way handshake happened, then the connection will be changed to established. So even the firewall will also maintain these kind of states of the connection, so that based on these states, we can also take the decision whether to drop or to allow the connection. And even with respect to the close or closing the connection, also the firewall can take a decision what to be done on these kind of states. So this is a stateful filter firewall, where it can also be used, because there may be certain cases where two simultaneous connection can be done. There is a query whenever three-way handshake is done, what is the next session? See, whenever we are done with the TCP three-way handshake, the next will be the data pushing. That is where the push flag will come into picture. So whenever there is a data flow, the push or the push flag will be used to continuously send the data. Or if we want to close the connection, we can directly send the reset connection. That is where most of the scanning tools will do. So this is where we need to also keep an eye on the monitoring or the logs of the firewall, whether we are getting a legitimate traffic or a kind of scanning with respect to the kind of number of reset packets which we receive from a certain IPs. So this is how a stateful will actually work. One simple scenario. Let's say the user is trying to connect a certain website through a firewall. Now this is how the states are maintained. First, it will come to the firewall, then the firewall will actually try to access the website. Okay, now when a reply comes, because firewall also has the state, it will verify, okay, this is a legitimate connection, and it will be sent to the user. Now let's say there is no request from the user, but still a certain type of we are getting a response from a different IP or on a different flag. Then it will check with the state table whether I have any connection prior with respect to this website. So there is no connectivity established, or there is no request from the user to this website. So it is simply dropped at the firewall. So this is how the firewall can be used to get evaluation of the certain kind of source and destination IPs, as well as the ports. Even we can also check the header values or the parameters like sequence number, what is the current flag value. Based on that, the stateful decision can also be taken with respect to the firewall. So this is how certain rules of the firewalls are in terms of the thing. So this is where we are trying to, now let's say instead of the graphical thing, if we get certain kind of packets or the filtering with these kind of rules. So this is where we have tried to explain in the previous sessions with respect to the Wireshark. So even by using this, we need to understand whether it is a legitimate or what kind of state we have with respect to what is the source IP address, what is the destination IP address. So by looking at the packet itself, we can assume or we can get some data with respect to that. So again, there are a lot of features with respect to that. One is authentication and authorization, as well as accounting of the kind of traffic that is flowing through. And the other thing is called network address translation. Let's say we want to host a certain type of public IPs onto the organization. Then we can use this natting feature, or even the proxy can also use this natting feature to allow the internal people to access the public. Where what happens is all the traffic of the internal network is translated into one single public IP address using this NAT feature. The same set of thing, now we are hosting a particular IP address, but the internal IP may be different. But for the public, they will be accessing through the public IP address only. So for this kind of thing also, we use natting or the network address translation, where certain IP of the internal network is translated to the public or vice versa. So this is where we use the network address translation mechanism in firewall to translate the private IP addresses to the public IP addresses. And for content security, we can use any of the kind of features like the gateway antivirus or the gateway kind of thing. Even we can use load balancing kind of thing, where we can map all 2 or 3 different servers to a single IP using this natting mechanism, where one request will be sent to one server, the second request will be sent to the other server, and the third request will be sent to the third server. So these kind of load balancing is also possible with respect to that. And the most important, as we discussed, is the logging activity, where everything has to be logged with respect to the firewall. So this is some of the kind of analysis or with respect to that. So with this, I'm just closing the session with respect to the firewall. There is a question like